Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Josh Cloer. He is the Director of Sales at Mujin and former guest of the show, too. He's back to talk to us, give us the latest on what's going on with Mujin. We'll talk a little bit about their TruckBot, which gets so much attention at the trade shows lately. And we'll talk a little bit about, too, just some of the biggest challenges out there that he's seeing in around automation in the industry, a little bit about what's going on right now in the industry as well. And of course, we'll talk about the future too. So Josh, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me back. Happy to be a recurring guest with you here, Kevin.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to have you on. Always appreciate the insights that you bring and the conversation with you around the industry and just talking to you in general too, of course. So for those maybe that are not familiar and maybe haven't listened to your previous episodes or seen some of the videos we've done with Mujin, give us a little bit of a brief overview of Mujin and what it is you all do.
Yeah. So Mujin is a robotics technology company founded about 12 years ago in Tokyo. So we
Mhm.
were born in Japan and grew up there and have recently, over the last 3 years or so, we've started our global launch. So we are across Asia, we're across North America. We've launched into Europe at the end of last year, actually, on the heels of our Series C fundraise, which was a little over $100 million there. So a lot's been going on over the last, I'd say, 12 to 36 months with the growth of the organization. I said we're a robotics technology company, meaning we have a core product in the
Mhm.
MujinController, which is really the brain that's behind the scenes on all these cool solutions that you're seeing when you come to a trade show. And
Yeah.
we offer that core product to our partners, whether that's robotics systems integrators or material handling companies, where we're helping them build robotic solutions to go into the warehouse primarily. We also do some material handling stuff in the automotive space, the manufacturing space, but our hearts in the warehouse, and that's why we're here to talk about warehouses with you here today, Kevin.
Of course, yeah, definitely, and I guess it's important too. I think maybe to talk about, you mentioned, all these solutions that we see out there, right? And at the end of the day, I think a lot of these solutions they're just, they're just a piece of hardware, but they're only as functional as that brain is behind them, right? That you mentioned. So, I guess how would you say to someone if they're going to like a Modex or a ProMat and they're just surrounded by all this stuff going on, like, how important is it to consider that brain and that controller or software behind the hardware that they're actually physically seeing?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a lot of times it's kind of lost on the audience as they're watching TruckBot pick cases out of a
Yeah.
container, or the crazy gripper that we have doing some cool multi-picking and single dropping for mixed palletizing. A lot of that capability, it's the MujinController that is the enabling technology for that stuff. The hardware, of course, is really cool in and of itself and highly capable. But being able to have this new way, this new kind of control architecture and ideology from the MujinController is really what's enabling the cool tech to show at the trade show there. And the concept behind the MujinController is really that you no longer have to very directly describe how to move the things as the person that's programming the system to do some task. It's really a digital twin, and once the MujinController has an understanding of the surroundings, there are these motion planning aspects. So real time motion planning is happening behind the scenes. So there's no predetermined route that the robot's going to take to move from point A to point B. It's on the fly calculating how am I supposed to move to achieve the goals of the task that's in front of me, given the constraints and the abilities of the system itself. So it knows itself. It knows, hey, I'm a six-axis robot that has this kind of gripper, or
Yeah.
hey, I'm a truck bot and I move like this, right? And then it knows its surroundings, and from there, it figures out how do I achieve this goal that was set for me, whether it's building up a mixed pallet or unloading a container full of cases.
Interesting. So very self-aware robots. It sounds
That's
like
right.
they know
That's
themselves,
right.
right? They know what they
We're
are.
not to the singularity yet, right? But these the
Right.
robotics are becoming more aware, at least from a
Yeah.
task-based level.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I think it's very interesting. What you guys have been doing, and certainly the TruckBot made a huge splash last year at ProMat 23. But tell us, I guess, what's the latest with Mujin? I saw you guys have something going on with Walmart Canada. What else is kind of going on with you guys lately?
Yeah, yeah. So we have a lot of interesting, unique solutions going out in the market. You mentioned Walmart, so helping them with their induct operations
Hmm.
up in Canada, and TruckBot itself is kind of still in the pilot stage, starting to roll out into across warehouses across the world. Really looking for the right folks to partner up with there and bring that into the right environments. So very focused on specific market segment, very focused on the problems that it is really good at solving, which is when there is some kind of structure in a container. So imports is a great place to use this kind of technology. Or if a manufacturer is shipping a truck full of like box sizes as they're shipping to their warehouse or something from the manufacturing facility, taking out those structured cases. They don't have to be all one SKU, or they can be somewhat mixed. But taking those out at a very high rate is what TruckBot is really built for and is really good at. So we're finding the right partnerships there. It's getting into the hands of the customers over the last couple of years, and we're getting really great feedback there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great solution. I mean, I think it's a great problem to solve for too, because, and I've said this on the podcast probably countless times now, but I think, the unloading, loading of those floor loaded containers, especially, is probably one of the toughest, if not the toughest job in the warehouse operation. It's super hard to keep people in that job when they're doing it manually. So automating that and going after that from a robotics perspective, I think is a huge win for the industry overall. And so I'm curious too. I mean, what has the because you unveiled it last ProMat in 2023. It's been a little over a year now, and you're at Modex earlier this year. And I'll say actually our video of the truck bot on our YouTube channel was the most viewed video that we had in 2023. So if you haven't
Oh
seen
wow.
it, go to our YouTube channel, check it out. But I'm curious, what has kind of the feedback been, and how has that solution evolved over the last year or so now since it's been out there?
Yeah, the feedback from our customers where we have it, where we have working relationships and have the system actually installed has been great.
Mm.
It's solving the challenges that it's meant to solve. We also get a lot of folks that are asking about, hey, can you do this? And hey, can you do that?
Yeah.
So we get a lot of feedback from the market about, can you make it do higher mix scenarios? Can you kind of deal with the going and looking at the parcel world, right? Where you see the UPSs and FedExes of the world, and there's a little bit of anything that could be inside of that truck, or that trailer, I should say. And it's not really built for that quite yet. That's obviously the scalable thing in the future, but for now, we're very focused on kind of the structured environments
Mhm.
where there's high volume, where rate is a really important factor. So the feedback has been great, and we're excited to continue to kind of iterate, evolve the product, and show the market kind of the progress over time. And you will continue to see TruckBot at trade shows. I'll tell you that.
All right, great, and I love the name too, Truckbot. It's like sounds like a transformer or something, kind of in a sense. But I mean, I think too, like it's important to know because for those that maybe have not seen it in action or seen it at the Modax or ProMat, I mean, it's important to note that you guys are doing on the back end of the truck bot, because one thing to get those cases off the container or the trailer, right? And it's another thing that if they're floor loaded, well, they need to be palletized most likely too. And so talk to us about kind of the back end of the truck bot and how you're enabling that palletization to happen also.
Yeah, that's a very astute point. Most of the labor redeployment reduction is actually around getting those cases back onto a pallet. So a
Mhm.
lot of times in certain markets, you're taking the stuff out of a container just to get it onto a pallet so you can store it in the warehouse. And that's usually there's a couple of people trying to keep up with the one person in the trailer that's doing
Yeah.
the unloading if they're on like a de-stuff it or something like that. So it's the same with TruckBot, right? There's a lot of activity that has to happen on the back end if you don't have any kind of robotics to do the palletizing. So it takes 4, sometimes 5 people to put stuff onto a pallet if it's just TruckBot in the building doing the unloading. But you can pair that up with robotic palletizers, as you mentioned, which we've shown at the trade shows, and that actually has a larger labor savings than TruckBot itself. So it's actually an overall solution for taking the inbound of your facility and automating really the whole operation, depending on the type of complexities that you might have. I'll say that the palletizing activity it sounds like a simple one. Palletizing has been around a long time, but
Yeah.
when you put it on this kind of thing where the cases could kind of becoming any orientation, you have to actually scan the barcodes and induct that material into the building and do the tracking there and for traceability in the warehouse. And usually you're kind of purchasing something from a vendor or something when you're doing that barcode scan there. So it's a very important piece of data that you want to have, and tracking your manifest on your trailer relative to the actual that's coming into the building is super
Mm.
important as well. So a lot of overall system infrastructure things that need to be worked out, as well as just the constraints of it could be any direction, trying to sort it right because you're trying to build up inventory, so you want to make sure it goes to the right pallet. So it's a very difficult challenge, but something that we have been able to accomplish, and we've shown that at trade shows. We're doing that with some of our partners in their warehouses, and I'd say that that's a big part of the success of TruckBot. And in the end, is ultimately the warehouse operator wants to be able to get their stuff from the container onto
Yeah.
pallets and put away into storage. Right? It doesn't matter what the means are. It's how
Mhm.
do you get to that end. So we've been helping with our material handling partners and robotic system integrators, working together to create those solutions for our customers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's such a great thing because it is like, you want to get the boxes off the container, right, and into the building, but then on the back end, then if you still need a human to palletize it, then it's not that big of a win, right? It's really doing like that full kind of flow and that process there to be able to do that. So I think it's great that you guys have addressed that and that you are able to handle that variation too and the box sizes that are coming or the orientation as you mentioned all those different things to be able to palletize in the correct way too, which I think is another important thing. So very interesting there. And if we look at, and obviously we were talking about the challenge of unloading and around containers, if you're looking at the industry and automation in general within the warehousing industry, I mean, what other challenges or what would you say is the biggest challenge you're seeing out there or hearing from customers right now?
Yeah, I think it's different depending on where you are in the world, and I'll speak
Hmm.
for North America here.
Sure.
And I see a lot of mostly case handling things that we're trying to tackle here in North America, right? The ergonomic challenges, the back breaking work is at the case level. With at the pallet level, you're moving it with machines typically. At the each level, it's actually not that difficult of a
Mm.
human task. And humans are really good at each picking. So we've heavily focused on the case picking market overall with our solutions and with our partners. And I'd say it's actually the other side of the warehouse that we have had a lot of success with as well. So we do the induct stuff, the inbound stuff
Mm.
with TruckBot and palletizing, but also doing mixed palletizing. So being able to build up an order for a customer doing their kind of direct store deliveries in a unique way. That's been a big focus for us, and we see that there's a big economic challenge in terms of a kind of payback period that you might see with the traditional means for doing that, where you might purchase some large pallet shuttle case shuttle system and then have humans doing the palletizing coming out of that. Here we've leaned heavily into mobile robots, so that the concept of having a goods to person type scenario where you see that for each picking primarily, but you can also have it for case picking. We've turned it into goods to robots, and we call it robotic case picking. So having a kind of a field, you can imagine a field of inventory on top of racks where mobile
Okay.
robots can
Mhm.
kind of come and grab that inventory in sequence, so it picks the right item at the right time to bring to the robot at the pallet level, and then we pick from that inventory and build up mixed orders with a robot arm. So that gripper that we showed at Modex this year, I don't know if you got to see it, but it
Mm,
was picking a whole row at a time and then down to like a single case. So
mm,
we could do really high throughput, building up full layers with just a couple picks by picking rows.
mm,
But we could also get high mix on the pallet, which enables a lot of these, food and bev companies, CPG companies, folks that are doing those direct store deliveries.
mm.
There's a couple pallets that have to go out to a store every single day. That type of system really helps, and it's very cost effective when you look at it compared to buying a large shuttle system or something, and it really allows you to fully automate the whole order fulfillment operation. So you're just replenishing an area to give it the inventory that it needs, and then the mobile robots take it from there, and the robot arm builds the order, and the mobile robots take it to a wrapper and a labeler, and then it's ready to go out the door. So really, we're getting closer to kind of this promise that was here maybe 5-10 years ago with mobile
Yeah.
robots, where it's very flexible and highly modular, and you can do all these different workflows. And I think that's really finally happening for the warehouse with this kind of solution.
Interesting, interesting. And I think, I certainly heard coming out of Modex this year too, that was a lot of the discussion where people were looking for solutions for cases, right? Specifically. And I think it's interesting how you're addressing that, not only from, like you said, the throughput perspective, but then also the mixed perspective too, of being able to do that. Cause obviously you see in the industry where there's more and more mixed pallets kind of getting out there, and people are trying to be more efficient in that way and utilize less space in the truck, and mixing things on the pallets however the scenario may fit. But I mean, I think that's very interesting, and I'm curious what you're seeing around kind of as you're getting more automated. How are operations and companies looking at still, I guess, the human element of the operation, and how to balance that with the automation piece as well?
Absolutely. There's always exceptions to handle, right? I
Mm,
think that's really the primary place where humans play a part. It's standing at the GTP station, the goods to person station, next to the robotic equipment, and the
yeah.
robot builds up some base, but then that vacuum based gripper can't pick this item or that item.
Mhm.
Well, the robot will build most of the order, and it can bring it to a human, and the human can throw the stuff on top, right? So it's that same person can also be the one that resets the system when there's any kind of errors. It can be looking out for the cleaning part of the operation. That's a big task in
Mm,
these types of goods to person systems, making sure that the mobile robot area is clean every day so that it can operate most efficiently and have little downtime due to maintenance. The actual maintenance activities for this automation stuff is really important as well. So finding the right mix of folks that you can have in your warehouse to support the operation, the overall space itself, and make sure it's good for the automation to work every day, and then maintaining that system. Those are going to be important jobs in the future as more and more automation comes into the warehouse.
I think that makes total sense. I mean, to be able to still consider that human element, and how does the human support that automation solution from operating efficiently, like you said, and from a maintenance perspective too, and making sure it's clean and managing those exceptions as well. And I think you can certainly get more efficiency and more throughput out of what you're putting in place by having humans only needed for managing those exceptions and doing those kinds of things surrounding that, which I think makes a lot of sense. So as you look at the industry now as a whole, and this is a crowdsourced question from LinkedIn here.
Okay.
So they want to know, what's the most exciting thing coming for the warehouse industry right now from a tech perspective, and you are not allowed to say AI.
Okay. Well, I would say there's probably two different main things here, and one, I'll lean into the Mujin side a little bit and say,
Okay.
uh, AI is this really, I said AI, but I'm going to say something
You
else here.
can't
So
say AI.
AI is this really exciting thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in automation, we're looking for high
Hmm.
reliability. You want to have deterministic outcomes for your system. And that's actually what the MujinController is really based on, right? We want to understand everything about the environment, use essentially physics to figure out how to solve the challenges that are in front of us relative to the goals that are given to us. And you don't necessarily need a machine learning algorithm to accomplish this. We got a spaceship on the moon without any AI, and they had very hopefully deterministic outcomes based off of the calculations that they're doing, right? And that's really how we think about the world. We think it's these deterministic outcomes. It's this model-based approach that's going to get you high reliability within the key focus. And of course, there's places to use machine learning algorithms in certain scenarios, but you have to have some arcing structure that's keeping that in check as well.
Hmm.
And then on the other side, I would say the most exciting thing is on the form factor side. I mean, seeing the advances in technology and unloading, like we're seeing with TruckBot, is one
Yeah.
thing, and then also on the other end of the warehouse, putting the stuff away. I think we've seen that from Fox Robotics here recently being
Hmm.
invested in by Walmart was a recent press release, and that's super exciting as well. Seeing, I know I come from the robot world. 5 years ago, people were asking me how do I put away my pallets in my truck, and
Yeah.
we're looking at it and we're saying that's a really hard problem.
Yeah.
Let's go back and see if there's something there. But there's been a lot of developments there, and there's some companies that are doing that and actually able to pack your trucks or unload your trucks depending on the complexity that you have within the trucks. So I think at the case level, that's something that we're focused on. But at the pallet level, there's advancing technologies there, and that's really exciting as well, which is really enabling the future of these smaller to medium sized warehouses being able to adopt more and more automation. Traditionally in the warehouse, you've seen it's only the large massive warehouses that
Yeah.
buy massive systems and spend a lot of money that can really get close to that full lights out automation. But I think you're going to see more and more that flexible automation is going to enable these small to medium sized warehouses do much more and get closer and closer to lights out. Of course, with the caveat that you always have to have maintenance, you always have to have people to handle the exceptions, you
Yeah.
always have to have kind of the overseers of the automation equipment, but it should be more like a system that is working for you as opposed to a bunch of people having to run around and do backbreaking work to fulfill the operations.
Mm, interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting perspectives there. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I love the fact that you touched on, how do we get these smaller, mid-sized companies access, I guess, in a sense, to automation and some of these robotic solutions. And I think it's pretty interesting to see how the market is shifting a little bit to start to bring these solutions out there. Because, like, to your point, like the Walmarts and the Amazons, they got some cash to burn, right? Essentially, and figure out what's working, what doesn't work, and do that research and stuff. But for like a mid-size 3PL or something, it's like, well, if we're gonna put something in place, it's got to work, right? We can't really like experiment here. So I think it's great to see the focus on that and how the industry is certainly recognizing that and reducing kind of those barriers to entry on the automation side. So I'm happy you touched on that. So if we look at the future for Mujin, what's next?
What's next? Well, I'm not here to announce anything like a humanoid robot today. I think
Oh, okay.
that's the other thing that's
Yeah.
very trendy right
Yeah.
now, and everybody's got there's a new humanoid every week. We aren't building the Mujin humanoid quite yet,
Yeah.
but that's an interesting one as well. So what's next for Mujin? I think it's honestly it's getting better at automating the workflows
Mm,
that exist in the warehouse and helping people figure out how to go from a human operation to an automated one. And I think
mm,
that's a big theme that Mujin has is we see a lot of these solutions that are out there from other folks doing robotic solutions, and a lot of times it seems like people are trying to put robots into a human operation without changing the operation at all. And we think that there are more efficient ways, there are better ways to enable humans to oversee this technology and change your workflows a little bit, change your layouts a little bit, but ultimately you get better throughput, better payback with that. So we're going to focus on that. We're going to focus on how do we bring unique solutions to the market? How do we empower our partners to bring unique solutions to the market? How do we enable our controller to do more and more applications that bring value to the warehouse and to the manufacturing facilities for the material handling activities out there that can be automated?
Mm, interesting. And I think that's really, really good. And I think, improving overall and, even going back to your point about, how do we make this more accessible for people to get automation? I think it's great that you're focusing on that too and really looking at what's the right solution and how do we put this in place to get the most benefit for the operator at the end of the day. So really interesting. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Josh, and get some insights from you and hear about the latest from Mujin and what's going on in the industry. If people are listening and they want to learn more about Mujin, what's the best way to do that?
You can check out our website, Mujin-Corp, corp.com, or you can send us an email, info@Mujin-Corp.com.
All right, great. And we'll put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well so people can easily find it. So, Josh, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, The New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.